The night was long. The highways stretched endlessly through the desert like a black ribbon under a starless sky, and the air smelled of burnt rubber and gasoline, heavy with the ghosts of races that had ended in fire, screams, and silence. Locals called this stretch of asphalt the Widow's Mile, for too many had tested their speed here and never returned, their wrecks left to rust at the roadside like metal tombstones. Their souls whispered about in late-night bars where truckers swore they had seen headlights appear in their rearview mirrors only to vanish the next second, and always there was one story told with a shiver, that of Adrian Cross, the Phantom Racer, a man who had once been the fastest on the circuit, undefeated, untouchable, a legend behind the wheel until the night he lost control in a midnight street race. His car flipping 3 times before bursting into a ball of flame that lit up the desert like a funeral pyre, his body never recovered from the twisted wreckage. Only the helmet cracked in half and the scorched steering wheel left behind, but people whispered that Adrian had not died, not completely, for on moonless nights when the highway went quiet, the roar of an engine could be heard thundering down the road, a car that no longer belonged to the living tearing through the dark at impossible speeds, headlights white as bone, chasing down anyone foolish enough to drive alone. On such nights the legend said the racer was searching, hungering, cursed to relive his last ride, and the unlucky who crossed his path would either disappear forever or be found mangled inside their cars with no sign of impact, their faces frozen in terror as though they had seen something not of this world. Lara Morgan had heard all of this before, but unlike the truckers and teenagers who whispered about the Phantom Racer, she didn't laugh. Because her older brother Daniel had vanished on this very road 5 years ago, his car discovered at dawn still idling at the side of the highway, headlights on, driver's side door open, but no trace of him ever found, as if the desert had swallowed him whole, and Lara, who had once promised her mother she'd never go looking for answers, found herself unable to resist when she inherited Daniel's old Dodge Charger, a beast of a machine painted blood red with a growl that shook her bones every time she touched the ignition. And though she feared the legend, she also felt its pull, a whisper in her ear telling her that maybe if she drove the Widow's Mile at midnight, she would learn what had happened. Maybe she could find Daniel, or at least the shadow of him, and so on the first Friday of September, beneath a sky as black as spilled ink, she pressed her foot on the accelerator, the Charger roared, and she entered the Widow's Mile with her heart pounding harder than the pistons in her engine, telling herself that she was not afraid. Though her hands trembled on the steering wheel, and the desert around her seemed to lean closer with every mile, pressing in with its silence, as though it too was waiting for something. At first it was only the hum of her own tires on the cracked asphalt, the rush of dry wind sneaking through the windows, the occasional tumbleweed spinning across her headlights like a broken dancer. But then came the flicker, the faint glimmer of twin white beams in the distance behind her, so bright they cut the darkness like knives. Growing larger though she was already pushing 90, her speedometer climbing, and still those lights gained on her, steady, relentless, without the sway of a human driver, without the hesitation of real wheels on real pavement, until her rearview mirror was nothing but blinding white, and the sound came, the thunderous, inhuman roar of an engine that rattled her chest as if the car itself wanted to crush her heart. And she knew then with a certainty that chilled her blood that she was not alone on the road, that the Phantom Racer had come for her, his presence not just behind her but all around, filling the night with the smell of ozone and fire, the way the air crackled before a storm, and though every instinct screamed to stop, to flee, to abandon the Charger and run into the desert, her foot pressed harder on the pedal until she hit 100, and the red beast roared like a demon unleashed. Yet no matter how fast she went, the lights behind her grew brighter, closer, until she could almost see the outline of a car inside them, blacker than the night itself, sleek and cruel, its grille like a predator's grin, its wheels not touching the ground but gliding, sparking as though tearing through another dimension, and Lara's breath caught in her throat as she realized she wasn't just outrunning a ghost. She was part of the race now, a race that had never ended, a race Adrian Cross had been cursed to repeat for eternity, dragging others into his final lap, and the finish line was always death. Lara's knuckles turned white as she gripped the steering wheel, sweat sliding down her forehead despite the cool desert night, her ears ringing from the unholy scream of the engine behind her, a sound too loud, too savage to belong to this world, and with every heartbeat, she felt the charger straining, metal groaning, as though the car itself feared what was coming, and she wondered if maybe her brother had felt this exact dread in his last moments. If he too had stared into his mirror and seen those impossible lights bearing down on him until there was nowhere left to go. Suddenly the phantom headlights vanished, swallowed by the night, and for one breath Lara thought she had outrun it, that maybe the story was just a cruel hallucination conjured by fear. But then the charger's radio, dead for years, a broken husk of wires and dust, crackled to life, spilling static that grew and warped into a distorted voice. A man's voice, low and ragged, whispering her name, Lara, stretching it out like a blade across her skin, and her stomach turned to ice because she knew that voice. She knew it as surely as her own heartbeat. It was Daniel's, her brother, speaking from nowhere, speaking from inside the static, calling her. Lara, don't stop, he's here. And before she could cry out, the phantom lights exploded into existence again, not behind but beside her, a sleek shadow car gliding inches from her window, black paint swallowing all light, its driver a dark silhouette gripping a wheel. A fire, helmet cracked down the middle, eyes burning white through the visor. And though his face was hidden, she felt Adrian Cross staring straight at her, hungry, merciless, his head tilting in recognition, as though he saw not Lara but Daniel's blood in her. And then, impossibly, he lifted one hand from the wheel and gestured forward, daring her, inviting her to race. Lara's pulse surged, and without thinking, she pressed the pedal to the floor. The charger roared, the desert blurred, but the phantom's car slid ahead like smoke, leaving trails of sparks that hovered in the air before vanishing, and the widow's mile seemed to warp, the asphalt stretching longer and longer, the stars bending above her until she no longer knew if she was on Earth or trapped in some endless loop of road, bound to the phantom's world. Mile markers passed but never changed. The same twisted Joshua tree appeared again and again in her headlights, and panic clawed at her throat as she realized she was stuck in a circuit, a cursed race track stitched out of time, and the only way out was to either win or be consumed. Daniel's voice flickered through the radio again, broken, frantic. Don't let him take you. And then cut to silence, leaving her with a pounding roar of the phantom's car ahead of her, weaving like a predator playing with prey, its taillights glowing blood red, calling her deeper into the trap. And she felt the charger shake as if protesting, yet she couldn't stop, not now, not when she had heard Daniel, not when the chance to find him burned like fire inside her chest. The road narrowed, desert vanishing into black fog pressing in from both sides, and then the phantom swerved suddenly, blocking her path, forcing her to slam the wheel left and barely miss colliding with him. And as she spun through the swerve, she glimpsed something in his driver's seat, chains wrapped around Adrian's arms, his chest scarred with burns that still smoked, his lips mouthing words she couldn't hear, and in the passenger seat for the briefest second she saw Daniel, pale, eyes wide, pounding on the window as though trapped inside the phantom's car, before the vision snapped away and the black machine shot forward again. Lara screamed his name, her voice tearing in the roar of the wind, and with fury she hadn't known she possessed, she slammed the gear stick and pushed the charger harder, her vision blurring, tears streaking her cheeks as she chased the impossible each second. Convinced the engine would burst into flames, but still the charger held, almost as if Daniel's spirit within it was urging her on, giving her strength. The phantom slowed just enough to let her draw close, taunting her, and when their bumpers nearly touched, the black car flickered like a broken film reel, disappearing, reappearing, each time closer, until it was suddenly behind her again, ramming the charger's rear with a jolt that nearly threw her into the desert, her teeth clacking together, her hands fighting to keep control as sparks exploded in her mirror, and she realized he was toying with her, wearing her down, the way a predator circles before the final strike, and the thought of Daniel chained inside that nightmare burned her anger hotter than her fear. So she slammed the wheel right, braked hard, and forced the charger behind the phantom, daring to chase him instead of flee. And the moment she did, the desert around her screamed, the sky flashing with lightning, the fog Burning crimson, the air filled with the scent of smoke and blood, as though some ancient rule had been broken, as though by choosing to pursue instead of run she had crossed into Adrian Cross's private hell, and the Phantom's car roared louder, pulling her deeper into a storm of fire and darkness, where the Widow's Mile stretched forever.